A number of people, when you went into the hospital a little while back, wanted to know, was it dehydration? Were you ill?
Yeah.
Was it a nervous breakdown?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brandy Norwood!
Brandy!
She's only 19, but Brandy is just sitting on top of the world.
But no, that was pushy. I'm a pushy stage mother.
My dream ever since I was 4 or 5 to be a successful recording artist, and I wanted it so bad that it had to happen.
The first question I get is, who's the real Brandy?
November 10th, 1999, Los Angeles, California. 20-year-old superstar Brandy Rihanna Norwood, known simply as Brandy to her millions of fans around the world, enters Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. At such a young age, Brandy had already accomplished more than most people could imagine. With multiple chart-topping albums, a leading role in a hit TV show, and a burgeoning acting career, she was undeniably at the pinnacle of success. Just 2 days earlier, she had allegedly walked off the set of her television show, Moesha, leaving the cast and crew stunned. Reports quickly surfaced of an explosive outburst, with some insiders hinting at the immense stress Brandy had been under. Now, as she entered the hospital, speculation ran wild. What happened? What could have driven the usually poised Brandy to such a breaking point? The medical diagnosis would be explained away as dehydration, but Brandy would step away from the spotlight for the next 3 years, only adding fuel to the speculation that the fame had become too much for her. Today we will explore Brandy's life, career, and the immense pressures of stardom. This is her story.
Brandy was first born. The very first thing that I told the doctor was, you have just birthed a star.
From the moment she was born, Brandy Norwood's mother knew she was a star. In a 1997 issue of Essence, Sonia Norwood told reporter Tara Roberts, "I told the doctor, I have just given birth to a star. I knew she was going to be somebody one day." Brandy was their miracle baby after all. Willie and Sonia had desperately wanted a child after losing their first, and in 1979, when Brandy entered this world, Sonia knew that this one was special.
This was before she could talk, walk, or she wasn't even off the bottle. So we knew then that she had some kind of tone and that she was going to probably be a singer, but we didn't know how good of a singer. She was too young then.
Music was in Brandy's DNA, a legacy passed down from her parents' bloodline. Willie Norwood was the minister of music at a local church in Macomb, Mississippi, where his daughter sang her first solo at just 2 years old. Willie began his career playing the trumpet for the Jackson State University Band, where he honed his skills and received a scholarship. In the early 70s, his talent led him to join a soul music group named The Composers as their lead vocalist. The group found moderate success opening for acts like Chaka Khan and Lou Rawls, and Willie eventually moved himself and his new wife to Hollywood to try to make it big in the music business. However, the bright lights of Hollywood came with their own challenges. Willie began to feel that the fast-paced, often morally ambiguous environment of the music industry was pulling him away from his religious roots, which had always been a guiding force in his life. The city that promised so much was also leading him down a path that felt increasingly distant from the values he held dear, so he and Sonia moved back home in the late 70s to regroup and start a family.
I knew God gave me a gift, and my dad worked with me, and he just developed me into this singer.
In the quiet town of Macomb, Mississippi, where Willie and Sonia lived, stars were few and far between. Macomb was a place where life moved at a slower pace, far removed from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. But the Norwoods believed that their daughter was destined for something greater. So when Willie received a job offer to return to Los Angeles, it felt like destiny had intervened. 2 years after Brandy's first church solo, the Norwoods packed themselves and their 2 young children, 4-year-old Brandy and 2-year-old Willie Jr., who would later go by Ray J, and moved to Carson, California in 1983. And while Sonia was working at H&R Block, for the next few years Willie would take the kids to and from school and have them work with the choirs he was ministering. "I taught Brandy and Ray J how to appreciate singing," he said in a 1997 Essence article. Picture this. It's 1985. Sonia and Willie Norwood make the 20-minute drive from Carson, California to the Forum with their 2 children in tow. They're at the Forum because Sonia's cousin, Bo Diddley, has a big show with the iconic Little Richard.
And the winner is still me.
Towards the end of the night, Little Richard invites people from the audience to come on stage and sing with him. Before anyone knew it, 6-year-old Brandy makes her way to the stage. She takes the microphone, stands in front of the packed house, and before the crowd can prepare themselves, this little girl starts belting with the power of performers twice her age. She finishes the song for the architect of rock and roll, and is met with boisterous applause from the audience. And in that moment, Sonia's intuition had been proven right. A star had been born.
Whitney Houston is hot. You could say she's an overnight sensation.
This 22-year-old beauty burst onto the music scene just a year ago with a debut album that has sold nearly 3 million copies.
In 1986, Whitney Houston won her first ever Grammy for the ballad Saving All My Love for You. The year before, the New Jersey native released her self-titled debut album, which initially reached a modest 166 on the charts in February 1985. But by March 1986, the album had shot up to #1 on the pop charts, where it remained for an impressive 14 weeks. Whitney was the epitome of pop perfection. Her voice, powerful yet nuanced, captivated audiences across the world. She graced late-night talk shows and starred in high-budget music videos, both of which were rarities for new black artists at the time. Whitney's rise wasn't just a breakthrough, it was a cultural milestone, marking the beginning of a new era where a black woman could dominate the pop music scene on her own terms. For 7-year-old Brandy Norwood, watching Whitney was nothing short of magical. She saw her on television, commanding the stage with effortless grace and unmatched talent, and in that moment she knew what she wanted to do with her life. She told her parents she wanted to be the next Whitney Houston.
At 7, she came and she says, I want to be as big as Whitney Houston one day. And I said to myself, that's a very tall order, but we'll see what we could do.
Drew Barrymore, Judy Garland, Michael Jackson, all artists who began their careers before they were teenagers. Just like Brandy, she had been training to be a star since that first solo in Macomb, and she wanted it more than anything. By the age of 11, Brandy began entering local talent shows and showcases. Most didn't lead to anything until one day she caught the eye of producer Chris Stokes. Chris Stokes was managing the group Immature when he first saw Brandy. Immature was a trio led by Marcus Houston, also known as Batman, Romeo, and Half Pint, who would later be replaced by LBD. The group performed in the same talent show, but Stokes was impressed most by Brandy. By 1990, when she was 11 years old, she signed with Teaspoon Productions, headed by Chris Stokes and his business partner Earl Harris. According to Teaspoon, they initially entered into an agreement that they would represent Brandy and try to get her a record deal in exchange for 50% of her future royalties and 20% of all her merchandising. Brandy started by singing background for Immature, who got the bulk of the team's attention.
To a girl coming out, Brandy, sweet me kind, sweet destiny.
While playing around one day, Brandy became responsible for one of the Immature group members' distinct looks.
Yeah, she had her and Half Pint had got into it. And
Okay.
she got up and just kind of like she had a book in her hand, just tossed it back.
Tossed it back.
Not thinking
Right.
I was that close, and it cut my retina.
While playing around with Half Pint backstage of a Lou Rawls telethon, Brandy threw a book which accidentally cut Romeo's retina, detaching it from his eye. This unfortunate incident caused Romeo to have permanent damage to his right eye, and he opted to wear an eye patch or sunglasses for the majority of the time he was in the group.
Brandy was always insecure on how she looked. She always wanted to look pretty. And she never felt pretty.
Brandy was beautiful, talented, and had off-the-charts charisma. But even though she had all that, the beauty standards of the day weighed heavy on her. She was often teased at school for not having the straightest teeth, fairest skin, or the longest hair. She tried to fit in at Hollywood High, using her talent and acting abilities to stick out amongst the crowd. But kids would mistake her confidence and drive for arrogance, so she had a hard time making friends. While a freshman at Hollywood High, her guidance counselor didn't recognize her talent or her beauty. While other students were being sent to auditions by the teacher, Brandy had trouble persuading her to send her on calls like other girls. Brandy said, "One day I asked, 'Why aren't you sending me out on calls?' And she said, 'Because you're not drop-dead gorgeous.'"
You living in a glass house, don't throw no stone.
To become the next Whitney Houston, you have to do more than sing. So Brandy and her parents wanted to try acting as well. Chris Stokes was able to cast Brandy and Immature's lead singer Marcus Houston in a sitcom titled We Are Family, which didn't make it past the pilot. At just 12 years old, Brandy auditioned for Atlantic Records executives who told her she was too young and to come back when she turned 14. After this initial disappointment, Brandy told Billboard, "I practiced every day. I imagined each corner of my room as a different part of an audience. It was amazing to feel inspired and driven." By 1993, once she was 14, Chris Stokes and Teaspoon Productions were working to secure Brandy a solo deal with East West Records. Around the same time, her parents arranged a second audition with Atlantic, allegedly behind Chris's back. This time, A&R Darrell Williams and label head Sylvia Rowan were present. Brandy performed Mariah Carey's Vision of Love and her idol Whitney Houston's Greatest Love of All. And the second time around, the Atlantic team was ready to sign her on the spot. After Brandy signed to Atlantic, Sonia quit her job as an H&R Block district manager and devoted herself to managing her daughter full-time.
Hi, Mama.
During the early days of signing, Brandy was selected to star in the ABC sitcom Thea. The show was the first time a black female comedian headlined her own network television sitcom. There's rumor that the tense relationship between Thea and Brandy played a role in the show's demise.
When you are acting in the front of someone who, soon as they say cut, curses you out, and then you gotta come right back and get right back in character, that's dry.
Since this was Brandy's first real acting gig, she naturally encountered some of the typical challenges faced by amateurs, like forgetting her lines. Thea admitted to becoming aggressive with Brandy, who was around 14 years old when the show premiered. Thea says that Sonia was the prototypical overbearing stage mom, which escalated the tension. On top of that, the production crew thought it would be a good idea to start introducing musical numbers within the show to highlight Brandy's singing abilities. This caused more anger from Thea, who wanted to be the center of the show. The constant bickering between Brandy and the show's star, as well as the ratings consistently dropping, caused the show to not be renewed for a season 2. The show initially garnered high ratings but started rapidly declining during the season and was eventually canceled after 19 episodes. Brandy had no love lost about the show's cancellation, stating, "I felt bad for everybody else but me. It was a good thing because I could do what I had to do, because I wanted to sing." But the drama didn't stop there. Chris Stokes and Earl Harris would go on to sue the Norwoods, Atlantic, and Warner Communications for $5 million, claiming that the day Teaspoon finalized the deal with East West Records, Brandy's parents made a deal with Atlantic, thus terminating their contract to allegedly circumvent having to pay Teaspoon any royalties or merchandising from the deal they made. But the matter was settled privately.
I wanna be done with what you're going through. I wanna be done. I wanna be done with you. I wanna be done.
Brandy, the self-titled debut album, in stores now.
Brandy's self-titled debut album was released in late September 1994, when she was just 15 years old. AllMusic writer Eddie Huffman declared Brandy a lower-key Janet Jackson, or a more stripped-down Mary J. Blige. Entertainment Weekly called the album a premature effort at best. That seems based on the philosophy, if Aaliyah can do it, why can't I? Damn, I forgot to mention Aaliyah. Hold up. While there were many attempts of marketing teen artists before her, in the mid-90s, the first young black girl to hit the scene in a major way was Aaliyah in spring of 1994. She opened the doors for young girls like Brandy to get taken seriously as an artist by the general public. At 15 years old, Aaliyah dropped her debut album, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, just a few months before Brandy's self-titled album in 1994. And although they were the same age, the way they presented themselves couldn't be further away.
Brandy said some things that were said. Now, did you hear what you actually...
I caught wind of some of it, but I don't pay much attention to that. I think there's room out here for all of us. So, good luck, Brandy.
Although the direct quote is hard to find, it was reported that Brandy critiqued Aaliyah's more mature look and style, stating that her mother and manager Sonia would never let her dress like that, which was true at the time. Brandy's image was that of the prototypical teenager, and because of that, she often opted for a more modest look than many of her peers. Aaliyah, on the other hand, was a style icon. But y'all already know that.
And the lady of the hour was 15 with power. Oh my God, I can't believe her age. This is Brandy, for those of you who have been living under a rock for the last 3 months, basically, that the song has been all over the place. What's going on?
Not much, just really chilling, getting ready to perform.
Welcome to Video Music Box. It's your first time.
Thank you.
Brandy's debut single, I Wanna Be Down, was released on September 5th, 1994, just 3 weeks before her album's release. The single peaked at #1 on the R&B charts, and upon its release, Sylvia Rhone had the idea to remix the track with a crew of female rappers. The remix features MC Lyte, Yo-Yo, and Queen Latifah. The video was directed by Hype Williams and gave a slight edge to the cookie-cutter image Brandy had presented to the world. Sonia handcrafted this image. She picked the wardrobe, she picked the hair, she picked almost everything so that Brandy reflected her vision. She was going to do everything she could to protect her daughter's reputation and refused to allow her to wear anything too revealing or mature, even if it went against what the label or higher-ups thought.
See? Yep, we don't see no navel neither. We see turtleneck.
No, straight covered up.
Yeah, always covered up.
Brandy's debut album was a smash and produced 3 Billboard 100 Top 10 singles. Baby was the second single from the album peaking at number 4 on the charts. In the public's view, Brandy was on top of the world. She even met her idol Whitney Houston around this time, after many unsuccessful attempts before.
Come here with your little pretty self. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud. Yeah, oh, look at you. How you handling it all, huh? It's cool. It's cool.
Brandy's album went on to go over 6 times platinum, and she earned 2 1995 Grammy nominations for Best New Artist and Best Female R&B Vocal Performance. She also won 4 Soul Train Awards that year, all by the age of 16. The third single, Brokenhearted, featured a member of the biggest boy band of the time.
We always talk, back and forth, joking, we should do a duet, and I was always scared because, she could sing so good, and I didn't want her to over-sing me.
Brokenhearted, a duet with Wanya Morris of Boys to Men, became a number 2 hit on the charts. In 1995, she was an opening act on Boys to Men's 2 World Tour. While on tour, Brandy and Wanya allegedly began dating. He was around 22 years old at the time.
I was young too.
She said she was 15 and she had to keep it a secret because she was so young.
See, we did the thing. We did the thing when she was like 16, 17, around that time,
You was so you were still a boy too. You
I wasn't old. I wasn't
like
like 38 years old, nothing like that. I was old enough to. She was old enough to get it. Okay.
But was it legal?
After Brandy finished up the 2-month stint on tour, she earned another top 10 single.
That's a girl that I met at a young age, and she was like one of the best voices I'd ever heard. Had such a young girl singing so good. It was a young girl that both Whitney and I, we sat down and talked about it, and Whitney was like, "This girl can sing. This girl gonna be me one day." She actually said that, "This girl gonna be me," and I have to say that this little girl is one of the best singers I've ever worked with and I've ever seen. And that girl would be Brandy. Brandy is like, I think she's underrated. I don't think people appreciate her voice enough. She's ridiculous.
In November of that year, the Waiting to Exhale soundtrack was released, and it was an absolute smash. Featuring an all-female lineup including the icon Whitney Houston, as well as newcomers like Mary J. Blige and TLC. The executive producer of the album, Babyface, invited Brandy to the mix. Sittin' Up in My Room was the second single of the soundtrack following Whitney Houston's Exhale and peaked at number 2 on the Billboard 100.
Move to the, E to the, move to the, E to the.
Recognizing Brandy's acting potential from her role on Thea, Ralph Farquhar believed she would be perfect for the lead in the sitcom he was developing. The show focused on a middle-class black family, with the storyline centered around their eldest daughter, Moesha. Despite Ralph's enthusiasm, Brandy was initially hesitant due to her previous negative experience on a sitcom. However, the creators were determined to have her in the role, and ultimately Brandy agreed to take it on. It was originally ordered as a pilot for CBS's 1995 television season but was declined by the network. It was eventually picked up by UPN, and Brandy was now being broadcast into the homes of hundreds of thousands of viewers every week, keeping her in the public's mind. But it seemed as if drama always followed. In a 1998 Vibe cover story, Brandy stated that her and the actress who played Moesha's best friend on the show, Countess Vaughn, weren't actually as close on set. Brandy went on to say a mouthful to the interviewer, stating, "I think she's very funny, very talented. I just feel like she wants to be in the position I'm in. People tell her, 'You're the reason why the show's successful,' and she's told me that before. And she's called me a bitch to my face," she said. "I'm the reason why the show is successful in front of a lot of people." And I looked at her like, wow, I couldn't say anything about her because I wasn't about to. She knows. She wakes up and looks at herself in the mirror and gets disgusted. I don't. The beef started from petty teenage drama, fighting for who was the funniest or got the most attention on set. It would eventually blow over, especially after Countess secured her own spin-off, The Parkers. Even in the midst of all the drama, Moesha was a hit and became UPN's most popular show on the network.
This prom, 3 hours after it started, Kobe Bryant and his date, pop star Brandy Norwood, finally arrived in a white limo. Their security people did their best to keep microphones out of their face. We tried anyway.
Even though she was privately dating Wanya, Brandy had a 17-year-old basketball phenom completely smitten. Kobe's mother, Pamela Bryant, told the Philadelphia Daily in 1996. He came home from the 1996 Essence Awards and said, "I met such a nice, beautiful, intelligent, sweet person." Eventually, Kobe got in contact with Brandy and had a unique ask. He wanted her to go with him to senior prom. and after asking Sonia, the two emerging stars made it a date. About the night, Brandy said, "I had never been treated like that by anybody before. Kobe made me feel beautiful." Kobe and Brandy continued to hang out for a while. He even guest starred on an episode of her show. And although they never dated seriously, since she was still involved with Wanya, Kobe and Brandy were a cute couple at the time.
The part is Cinderella, and Whitney Houston is Brandy's fairy godmother indeed. As executive producer of the new TV movie, Whitney handpicked Brandy for the role.
In 1997, Brandy was handpicked by producer Whitney Houston to play the title character in Rodgers and Hammerstein's version of Cinderella. The television special garnered an estimated 60 million viewers, and Brandy was the first ever black woman to play the role of Cinderella in a film. It was a dream come true for Brandy to work with her musical icon who played the fairy godmother in the movie, and a monumental moment for the country to see a young black woman embodying a fairy tale princess. Millions of young girls were able to see themselves represented through Brandy in the film.
I'm only 19, and when I first heard Brandy's first album 4 years ago, I love Brandy. I'm a fan of hers. So when I got called to work with, I was like, oh my gosh, this is, I'm in an awkward position. I'm a fan of hers.
In 1997, producer Rodney Darkchild Jerkins had just scored his first major placement with Mary J. Blige's #2 hit, I Can Love You. But he says his big break didn't come until Atlantic Records called and wanted him to take control of Brandy's second album. Jerkins would produce and write on most of the songs on the album, including the #1 hit, The Boy Is Mine, which was both written and produced by Brandy, as well as himself and Dallas Austin. Brandy wrote the record after watching an episode of Jerry Springer about love triangles. It was written as a solo track, but Darkchild thought that it would sound better as a duet.
But Monica never liked Brandy, and Brandy, she was like, Monica's very ghetto when it came down to it. She was like, she's too proper, and she's too this, and I think Brandy might have looked at her a certain way a couple of times, and looked at her like the little, And so from that point, it was just like, even to have them do The Boy's Mine, Monica was like, nope, not doing no song with her.
Enter Monica. Discovered at 11 years old by Dallas Austin while performing at Center Stage Auditorium in Atlanta, she had been on the scene since she dropped her debut album Miss Thang in the summer of 1995. Monica and Brandy were more alike than they were different. They both could sing. They both loved Whitney Houston. And they were both young women navigating rapid success. But while Brandy had a clean-cut, cookie-cutter image crafted with the help of her mother, Monica was a little more edgy. While Brandy was media-trained, Monica was not. And while Monica was more street-savvy, Brandy could use a little help in that department. The idea for the record was based on the media-concocted beef between the two R&B stars, even though before the record was cut, they had only ever really seen each other in passing. Dallas Austin claimed Monica never liked Brandy and vice versa, even though they never had a real reason.
This song was done because I know that I've liked Monica since Don't Take It Personal, and I don't know how much she's been a fan of mine, but I can just say for myself, I really wanted to work with her. And, I don't like the rumors. I don't like people trying to put us against each other, because it's not like that, because, that's my girl. Right. She was out for me. I told you.
The single was a success immediately, and eventually spent 13 weeks at the top of the charts, and was the second longest-running #1 in history. But that perceived tension between the two collaborators turned into real public beef once the song was released. The tension almost came to a head on the set of the video shoot for the single. Brandy apparently put her hand in Monica's face while trying to act out the lyrics. Monica told Vibe magazine. Brandy was ad-libbing about the situation, and at one point she put her hand to my face playing. And it upset me. That's the kind of stuff that becomes personal with me. Not because it was Brandy. That goes for anybody. The two ladies wouldn't see each other again until the 1998 Video Music Awards, where Monica allegedly punched Brandy in the face during rehearsal.
The first time they actually saw each other to do it was, I think it was American Music Awards or something. And before they could even get to the stage, Monica decked her in the face, popped in the face backstage. And I'm like, oh my God, this is even before the performance. So everybody.
Monica allegedly punched Brandy as a result of Brandy bad-mouthing one of her backup dancers, but they still performed that night, mostly from opposite ends of the stage, and you could cut the tension in the performance with a knife.
He belongs to me, the boy is mine.
The two ended up losing both of their VMA nominations that night, but they won the Grammy Award for Best R&B Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocal.
Got up and ran on the stage like I couldn't believe it. I mean, that is the way to accept a Grammy, because the Grammy is the most important award to me.
It's the only Grammy the pair have ever received.
So she became kind of like my little protege. Actually, the one that introduced her to Vita Spears and Ralph Fuqua and her mom and we both made it so that Brandy was able to go on tour. I mean, on the prom with Kobe Bryant. We actually fell in love. Now, she grew out of me and I grew out of her. Might have grown out of her a little bit faster, but...
Brandy acknowledges Wanya as her first love, but he ended the relationship in 1998, a month shy of Brandy's 19th birthday. He had fallen in love with someone else.
If you're looking for an outspoken woman, please look no further. We got the one and only Adina Howard.
That person, allegedly, was Adina Howard. The 25-year-old singer was Brandy's label mate, and despite being told by Sylvia Rhone to focus on her career and not to get involved with Brandy's boyfriend, Adina went on Wendy Williams' radio show and aired out both Brandy and Rhone, to which Sylvia put her second album on an indefinite pause. This inevitably shut down Adina's career, and she never fully regained the success she had previously had. And while Adina might have won the guy, Brandy won more clout with the record label.
My career right now is at a level where I want it to be. It's like I have more say-so into what I'm doing, and I know what direction I want to take myself. I want to go into a more mature level.
By 1998, Brandy was one of the most profitable artists of the time. While there were other teen stars like Monica, none had matched Brandy's marketability or commercial success since her 1994 debut. She was on a hit television show, she had commercials, endorsement deals, and platinum records. Brandy's blueprint proved to the major labels that there was much more value in investing in young acts than they previously expected. Then came the wave. Record labels began churning out pop stars like they were on an assembly line. In September 1998, Britney Spears released her debut single. And while they had been bubbling under for a few years, Backstreet Boys released their first successful US project in mid-1997. The teen pop explosion was in full swing. Thanks to trailblazers like Brandy and Aaliyah, labels now understood that the public was hungry for fresh, youthful energy. But with new energy comes new competition. Brandy was now not only in competition with the peers she came up with, but now there was a bevy of new artists making their presence known on the charts. So Brandy felt like she had to go hard for her next project.
She's only 19, but Brandy is just sitting on top of the world. Got her own TV sitcom, Moesha. Last year, she became the first African-American actress to play Cinderella on TV, and she just completed her second album, which features America's #1 song.
Never Say Never, Brandy's second album, was released in June 1998 and became her biggest selling record ever. The album was incredibly successful, selling over 16 million copies worldwide and reaching #2 on the Billboard 200. The album was spearheaded by Darkchild and writer LaShawn Daniels and introduced us to a new sound from Brandy. It was modern and experimental, a far cry from her debut album. Top of the World, the second single from the album and follow-up to The Boy Is Mine, peaked at #4 on the R&B charts and featured the bad boy rapper Mace. The two artists were rumored to have dated briefly in the late 90s. Brandy's second #1 hit, Have You Ever, was written by pop music staple Diane Warren and stayed on the top of the charts for 2 weeks. And on top of that, Brandy was still acting. Around 1996, Brandy had been offered a role in F. Gary Gray's crime drama Set It Off in the role of TT, who was eventually played by Kimberly Elise. Due to her image, she turned it down because of the content in the film. Brandy also claimed that she looked too young to fit into the lineup with the rest of the cast. Moesha still had strong ratings for the UPN network, and she had started her transition into movie stardom. In 1998, she starred in I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, the follow-up to the blockbuster smash. The sequel was also a box office hit, raking in $16.5 million on its opening weekend. To promote the album, she embarked on the Never Say Never World Tour in the summer of 1999. The tour spanned through Europe, Asia, and the United States. But she would have to cut the tour short due to UPN ordering her to get back early to film Moesha.
Brandy's so cool. In the spotlight, watch her shine, girl. Now Brandy's a doll.
The Brandy Barbie was released in 1999, cementing herself as a staple in the culture. Brandy was a pop princess. She was everywhere. On magazines, on television, on the charts, and to the public's eye, she was at the top of her game. Also in spring 1999, she starred in the television movie Double Platinum with mega icon Diana Ross. The movie was about the fledgling relationship between a famous mother and daughter, something Brandy knew from personal experience.
She had to sit down and say, Brandy, you gotta do this. There's people out there waiting on you. You have to come and focus and do what you have to do.
Balancing the roles of both mother and manager is no easy task. You have to be both a confidant, offering comfort and guidance, and a strategist, making difficult decisions and providing strong leadership. And although Sonya Norwood tried her best to balance both, sometimes that was difficult. Brandy had been working for almost a decade by 1999, and although there was a slow bubbling for a while, once she began to rise, it was meteoric. By 1999, Moesha was in its 5th season. They were filming one day in November when Brandy decided she had enough. According to reports, Brandy allegedly had an outburst on set, where she collapsed to the floor and screamed, "I can't do it anymore."
Said recently on the CBS Morning Show that indeed it was a breakdown. Some of your articles have said it wasn't. So tell me, what was it?
It was a mixture of things. I would say that it was mentally it was a breakdown for me because of all the work that I was doing, everything that I was around. It was a breakdown for me, but physically it was dehydration.
Brandy has never confirmed the exact happenings of the days prior to her hospitalization, but it seemed as if everything in her life came to a head on the set of Moesha. Brandy claimed she didn't have an outburst and instead drove home without saying anything. But even still, she claimed that period of her life was the result of a nervous breakdown, and Sonya acknowledged that a lot of Brandy's problems revolved around her being more of a manager than a mother.
Sometimes I just wanted her to listen to my problems.
Stop being my manager.
Please.
And just be my mother for a second.
Yes. It was just like, oh, here we go again, another day with the manager.
As her manager and her mother, Sonya blames herself for letting her child take on too much.
I take responsibility for it as the adult, regardless of whether she wanted to do it or not. You have to take responsibility.
She was also in a relationship in which she couldn't fully express herself either. Around 1999, she entered into a relationship with someone she claimed was verbally and mentally abusive, but the exact person has never been confirmed by a reliable source. She claimed that the relationship was very, very, very bad. Brandy recalled one traumatic incident with the guy to Oprah, in which she said, "He called me a 13 times in one day. I counted." The one thing she could control was her body. Brandy had it in her mind that she needed to be thin to be considered beautiful to the general public, and although she always had a slender figure, she had plummeted down to 105 pounds from her normal 125. The pressure to not only be beautiful but also a professional had all boiled over, and she just couldn't take it anymore. By the next season, Moesha was canceled. The show left on a cliffhanger which showed the possibility of the character being pregnant, which I'm still waiting to figure out to this day. But after the show went away, so did Brandy. She took a 3-year hiatus after the show went off air, only appearing on a couple tracks here and there during the break. One of those tracks was Unbreakable by the King of Pop. Darkchild was heavily involved in Michael's 2001 Invincible album, and Brandy was called up to help with the track. She's officially credited for only one track on that album, but many fans speculate she's on the mid-tempo tune Heaven Can Wait as well. By 2002, Brandy was back. Her third album, Full Moon, was released in February of that year. Like with Never Say Never, Rodney Jerkins had a hand in production. Brandy's sound was still modern, and this time a bit more experimental. The lead single, What About Us, peaked at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100, and the follow-up single, the title track Full Moon, peaked at number 18. The reception for the album was mixed, and got a rating of 60 on Metacritic. Full Moon is often credited as the moment when she became known as the vocal Bible. Fans and critics alike praised her vocal performance, particularly her innovative use of intricate harmonies and vocal arrangements. This album highlighted her technical skill and unique tone, leading to her being dubbed with that title. She was so good, even Michael Jackson returned the favor and contributed background vocals to her album as well.
I'm here in New York because I missed my sweetheart and I needed to come and see him. I think around this time I'm kind of like in need of attention, and it's fun. It's fun being with him because he's my best friend and we do everything together, so.
The same month that Full Moon dropped, Brandy revealed that she was pregnant. She had been involved with Robert Big Bert Smith, who was Darkchild's cousin, and their relationship had been on the hush until Brandy announced her pregnancy. On the Oprah Winfrey Show, Brandy revealed that the two eloped without telling anyone, not even her parents. Also in June of that year, Brandy and Robert starred in Brandy's Special Delivery, a 4-episode documentary series which followed the married couple in their final months of pregnancy. Brandy gave birth to her daughter on Father's Day in June of 2002. Approximately a year after her birth, Brandy and Robert split.
And is it true that you had a finished previous album that was produced mostly by your husband or something and it never came out and you went in and did all new records for this one?
Well, first of all, I don't have a husband.
Okay, your ex. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
ex-husband.
You
Let me
gotta
say
put
that
the ex
right.
before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But no. We started some music, but Timbaland was always the direction that I was going.
Okay. Well, thank you for clearing the air.
Brandy's fourth album, Afrodisiac, was released in 2004, and notably Darkchild was not involved with the production for the album. She would go on to say, "Darkchild created a sound with me and gave it to everybody. I didn't like that. I needed to change my sound and I wanted to explore my versatility, my creativity, and my art." It's true. By 2004, Darkchild was lighting up the charts with various artists. Many of them sounded like different variations of Brandy records, and although it might not be exactly fair for Brandy to want to lay claim to a specific production style, there was some truth to her statements. In the midst of all of this, Brandy decided to do a complete overhaul of her team, even removing her mother as a manager and signing Benny Medina, the famed brains behind Jennifer Lopez, Tyra Banks, and for a while, Mariah Carey. But their business relationship was short-lived, lasting less than a year and ending in July 2004. This was allegedly due to many business contracts falling through Medina's hands, including a co-headlining world tour with Usher that never got off the ground. Afrodisiac was promoted as an autobiographical album about Brandy and Robert's breakup, with lyrics hinting at a marriage's dissolution and infidelity. It was supposed to tell the story of what Brandy had been going through romantically the past few years. Afrodisiac was critically acclaimed. Critics compared the album to Janet Jackson at her best, which was the ultimate compliment for Brandy. It was sexy, it was bold, it was autobiographical, and most of all, it was authentic. So we thought. In the midst of her album rollout, Robert featured on Wendy Williams' WBLS radio show while trying to promote his unknown artist who went by the name Amanda. He claimed that they were never married, and that it was all a lie that Brandy's mother conjured up in hopes to preserve Brandy's good girl image. Smith claimed on the radio that he was actually involved with another woman when he found out Brandy was pregnant, and that Brandy was just a quote-unquote jump-off. Brandy would release a statement in response, stating that they had a spiritual union and a true commitment to each other. She stated, "He is trying to destroy my reputation while using me and our daughter to get publicity and radio airplay for his artists. I am stunned that he is being so dirty about it." This caused fans to question Brandy's authenticity. Why would she lie about being married in order to protect her image? What was real about her? The public had questions, and Brandy became the butt of many jokes and tabloid scuttlebutt as her album was being released. The album peaked at number 3 on Billboard and sold 131,000 copies in its first week. But it was a commercial disappointment for Brandy, especially when you compare it to the mega hit Never Say Never. At the time, she was dating New York Knicks star Quentin Richardson. By June of that year, the two were engaged. She even got his face tattooed on her back.
That's a wrap from my 2 stars right here. Yeah. I got to set up. Yeah, she's been having too much fun, man. What you doing to her?
Man, look.
Stop, Dave.
That's Dave trying to start something
Yeah, like.
Brandy got a boyfriend. I got a girlfriend.
Girl, it's, you know what I mean? We working together.
He's an actor, see? Actor.
Yeah,
They're good actors.
One of Brandy's best tracks, in my opinion, was produced by the old Kanye and was the lead single for the album. Talk About Our Love peaked at number 36 and was the highest charting single from Afrodisiac. After being at the company since 1993, Brandy asked for an unconditional release from Atlantic Records at the end of 2004. She stated that she was ready to move on and make changes in her life. To complete her contract, she released the Best of Brandy album as a sort of farewell gift to the company she had been at since she was a teenager.
It's the best of me.
Brandy's only 26 and she already has plenty of hit songs for a compilation CD. Called The Best of Brandy features a collection of her songs from the past 10 years.
She was letting go of a lot of things during this period because in September 2005, her and her boyfriend Quentin Richardson called off their engagement. She'd eventually cover up his face tattoo with butterflies.
The California Highway Patrol is recommending that actress-singer Brandy be charged with misdemeanor vehicular manslaughter in a freeway crash that killed a motorist last December in Los Angeles. The recommendation comes after a CHP probe of the incident. Police say 27-year-old performer Brandy Norwood was driving her SUV on an LA freeway on December 30 last year when she rear-ended a car driven by Awatef Abudahaj.
On December 30th, 2006, while driving on the 405 freeway in Los Angeles, Brandy struck a vehicle driven by a 38-year-old victim who later died from her injuries. Brandy was reportedly driving her SUV at 65 miles per hour, but didn't realize the car in front of her had slowed. California Highway Patrol stated that the victim accidentally struck the car in front of her and then slammed on her brakes before Brandy made contact. The sudden stop caused Norwood to hit the victim's car, and the car slid sideways, eventually hitting the center divider before being struck by another car. Brandy was never charged for the accident, although police recommended she face vehicular manslaughter charges. But the victim's parents filed a $50 million wrongful death lawsuit against Norwood. The lawsuit would be settled out of court. The two other drivers involved, as well as the victim's husband, also settled out of court with Brandy for undisclosed amounts.
I don't think that's something I could ever get over or ever truly understand. But that was one of the worst times in my life.
In 2008, Brandy reunited with Darkchild and released the Human album, which was Brandy's lowest charting album since her debut. The album peaked at number 15 on the Billboard 200 and sold 73,000 copies its first week. On her 2010 reality show with her brother Ray J, Brandy said she thinks Darkchild purposefully did not put his best work in the album and was not giving her what he had previously given for Never Say Never and Full Moon.
To you, I don't want Rodney to do the same thing that he did to me to Ray, which was go in purposefully and not do his best.
Speaking of Ray J, by 2010 he had become a household name, both for his music and other things. Sonia even ended up suing his ex-girlfriend in 2008 for stealing up to $120,000 from her American Express card. But anyways, Ray J had become a reality show staple, getting his own show on VH1 called For the Love of Ray J, and eventually the family got in on the deal too. Brandy, Ray J, and their parents did one season of their show, A Family Business, which chronicled the personal and professional doings of the Norwood family. The family released a family business compilation album in conjunction with the show, and although it was nice, it failed to chart.
True story, because I heard it was actually real issues between y'all after that record was recorded.
We didn't even know each other till we, of course not a dude, but we didn't know each other. And what happened was they do the same thing that they do now with the rappers or females, like they kind of created first. And we were young enough to just fall into the trap. So we didn't like each other, we didn't communicate, we didn't perform the record outside of the one time on the MTV Awards. We never even wanted to be in each other's presence for many years.
In 2012, 15 years after The Boy Is Mine, Brandy reunited with Monica to do another song titled It All Belongs to Me. They were full steam ahead doing press, and were set to perform for Clive Davis's pre-Grammy Gala. But on Brandy's birthday on February 11, 2012, Whitney Houston passed away in the Beverly Hills Hotel, in the same hotel that the gala was being held. This obviously crushed Brandy. Whitney was everything to her. In October of that year, Brandy named her sixth album 211, due to it being both her own birthday and the day of her icon's passing. 2 days before her tragic passing, Whitney handed Brandy a note. Brandy has never revealed what the note said, but the encounter was caught on camera.
So that's what made me want to do
Right. Who was your mentor?
Whitney Houston.
Yeah? And you knew from her that you wanted to do it?
Yes.
That's really great.
Brandy had mainly focused on acting since the 2010s, joining the cast of the BET seasons of The Game in 2011. She also starred in movies such as Tyler Perry's Temptation Confessions of a Marriage Counselor in 2013 and The Perfect Match in 2016. She also had a foray into Broadway, starring in Chicago as Roxy Hart. In 2019, Norwood was honored with the President's Award at the BMI R&B Hip Hop Awards in recognition of her impact on the entertainment industry, specifically her contribution to R&B music. In July 2020, Brandy's seventh album and first in 8 years, B7, was released. It was her first album released through her own label Brand New Incorporated and was her first independent project as an artist. The album debuted at number 12 on the Billboard 100, and in my opinion is some of her best work. Brandy also participated in the Versus cultural phenomenon in 2020, battling Monica. It was watched by a record-breaking 1.2 million viewers and was a respectable battle by the two R&B queens. In 2023, she released Christmas with Brandy, her 8th studio album and one that her fans had been begging for years.
I want to do more movies. I want to produce. I want to write. I want to start my own company. I want to be a businesswoman.
Brandy has been a cultural icon since her teenage years, navigating the highs and lows of fame with resilience and determination. She has weathered it all, emerging stronger each time. Brandy was the blueprint on how to become the quintessential 90s teen superstar. Her influence has inspired countless artists, shaping the landscape of music and entertainment. From her vocal arrangements to her history-making acting career, Brandy paved the way for many artists today, taking the licks so they didn't have to.
Something about you, it said, 2 of your idols, Whitney Houston and Janet Jackson.
Right.
Is it fair to say that you may be a blend of a little of both of them?
Yes, actually, I want to be Whitney Houston, the singer, and Janet Jackson, the performer.
From the moment she was born, Brandy's mother knew she was going to be a star. She was right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.